Does he have a point here that protests concerning his victory are a heck of a lot worse and the media coverage of them than if it were the reverse? Charlie Gasparino joins us right now. Brinberg, the King's College Manhattan Finance Chair, and Patrice Lee Onwuka, the Independent Women's Forum Senior Fellow. Patrice, what he's saying is, no, the media is still not fair and balanced, and the coverage of these riots probably prove it. What do you say?
I mean, I do think there's a point. When we've seen the coverage, we've seen it seems like thousands of young people are taking to the streets. And then when we consider the coverage of the campaigns and the election, the rallies, we didn't really see very much of that. I will say, though, that, you know, it's every young person's right to protest. However, I hope they really just aren't motivated by getting out of a midterm exam or a college paper.
I would have done that. If I was behind, I hadn't studied, I mean, I'd say, what can I do? What can I cook up? But Charlie Gasparino, the question that comes up here, particularly now in light of these high school protesters, most of whom can't even vote, and a lot of whom are speaking on behalf of illegals, maybe among their own ranks, who are afraid of the prospect of a President Trump. And I'm thinking high school, that age group, 14, 15, 16, 17, someone is putting them up to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, listen, what the prior guest just said was pretty funny. I couldn't help but chuckle about how these kids want to get out of their midterms, and so maybe that's why they're out there. This is much more organized than that. These are organized, often violent. I could tell you that a friend of mine in Manhattan had a bottle thrown at him and a bottle thrown at his dog as he was witnessing what went on 6th Avenue the other night. So these are violent protests, highly organized. If they're 14, 15, and 16-year-olds, they're being organized by 20 and 30-year-olds who are probably being financed by everybody from the Socialist Workers' Party to George Soros to just about everybody else. This is a left-wing attack on our democracy. It's violent. It's despicable. For the president not to stand up and say that this has to stop is an abomination. I mean, does he think that this is like one way to destroy Donald Trump, just getting into office by letting these idiots foment violence and by the way, anti-Americanism? They're like, half of these people should be considered terrorists. Gitmo for them. That's my solution.
Well, that's one possible option. But Brian, let me get your take on what this ultimately does. Whether you agree with the demonstrations, protests, all the way up to riots in Portland, Oregon, elsewhere, or not. I mean, it is meant to give a sense of delegitimizing the ultimate winner, and that could continue to when he assumes office, right?
Yeah, you know, and I just don't think that kind of uncertainty is really all that helpful. Look, we have a lot of problems to solve in this country. We've got an economy that's, you know, been sputtering. There's opportunity here for growth. We've got public schools. We've got education system in general that needs reform. I mean, these kids should be in the classroom studying the issues that we're talking about in this election, not on the streets protesting. We've got a lot of work to do. And the problem right now is you see all this activity, and it's not addressing the real needs in the country. And so I would just encourage these protesters to step back and say, what can I actually be doing in my community to be helping people out in the streets, throwing rocks, throwing bottles, rioting? It's just not the way to go right now.
You know, Patrice, what he's trying to do, or what I think they're trying to do, is sort of say, we're protesting ahead of whatever action he's going to take as president, that is Donald Trump. I'm all for protesting, but shouldn't they wait to see what he does first?
Yeah, I mean, it's putting the cart before the horse. You know, we have some indications on what the Trump administration could do, and there could be some potential for opportunity for young people, for jobs to return to this generation. But, you know, I do think, and picking up on some of the comments made earlier, that this is driven by more than just young people. This is driven by people who have an agenda. But I will quote Oprah, who said in a tweet, hey, take a deep breath. Let's just see what's going to happen next before we jump out there and start destroying property and being disruptive.
And
Charlie, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and we're playing with fire. And, you know, here's the thing, Neil. You and I are old enough to remember the early 70s and the late 60s. For every violent left-wing reaction to the Vietnam War, to attacks on American culture at the time, there were right-wing reactions. My dad, you know, I'm not proud of this, but it's true. He took part in something called the Hard Hat riots. back in the 70s. You're playing with fire when you go out there and you pull stuff like this. And I'll tell you, does the President of the United States want social unrest equivalent to the early 70s, late 60s? And if he does, then he's going to keep his mouth shut. But if he doesn't, and he wants to leave office on a very high note, he should condemn these right now before the country implodes.
You know, Brian, the one thing that I give high marks to both President Obama and Hillary Clinton is their attitude and conduct and demeanor post the election. Obviously, they didn't like the results, but they honored the results, and they spoke a message. The Americans have spoken. The American people have spoken. Does the president need to do that again in a more forceful way, or does it just embolden and encourage action every time a prominent leader does?
No, I really think the president should continue to say, look, we have election results, this is done, we have a direction to move in the future, and we have to support our president. And look at what Trump has talked about so far since he's won the election. He's been talking about tax reform. That helps everybody. He's been talking about regulatory reform. That helps everybody. He's been talking about health care reform. That helps everybody. He's actually focused largely on the non-controversial issues where everybody stands to gain in some way, shape, or form. I applaud him for doing that. There's things he could be talking more about that are divisive. He's not doing that. And so I do think Hillary Clinton, President Obama should be out there saying, look, he's giving this an honest effort right now, and he deserves at least our patience as he works through this transition.
All right, we'll see, guys. The president's set to speak in a couple of hours. By the way, these protests that you are looking at today, and I want to thank all of you. I appreciate it.